Did you know that Open World Survival Craft is an official tag on Steam? Well, they have their own festival now, with 2024 really being the year of this genre, with standout hits like Pale World, Enshrouded, V Rising, Abiotic Factor, The Planet Crafter, updates to Valheim, the 1.0 release of Sons of the Forest, and so much more. So here's a look at upcoming titles, beginning with Dawn of Defiance, one that taps upon Greek mythology, in which you are punching trees and building things, but then get to equip medieval weapons and armor and to face off against mythological monsters, and looks excellent. Here's a game that might still be rather early on in development in Loya, but it sure is gorgeous, having some Breath of the Wild vibes, with the gimmick here being that it's an open world crafting title, but you can construct walking bases, mount cannons on that, and use them to battle equally gigantic monsters, and has potential. This video is brought to you by Good Heavens, an open world crafting and building RPG in which you are the latest chosen one appointed by the god of the world, sent to fix their mistakes. It has an awesome hand-drawn art style and that very familiar camera and user interface reminiscent of games like Don't Starve Together or Crashlands, but leans more towards the former in terms of inspiration. There are unique character classes, each with their own tech trees and skill-based progression, along with a procedurally generated world for maximum replayability. As part of the Steam Open World Survival Crafting Fest, a new demo is available, so go play that and wishlist the game via the link in the description below. A game which I have previewed in the past is Ars Notoria, another open-world sandbox action RPG following in the footsteps of Valheim, but this has the more classic medieval high fantasy setting with magic and monsters. The main goal in this game is to hunt possessed monsters, but in which the different schools of magic play a critical role in how you will ascend to power in the world. There is of course co-op support, but also allows you to recruit NPCs and to form a faction of your own, eventually going toe-to-toe with the godlike high spirits, and looks pretty epic. Survival crafting games do have their standout entries in the sci-fi space, think Astroneer for example, with AETHUS being another title of interest, in which you are exploring an underground world, mining for resources and progressing up the tech tree. More interesting, however, is that this has a narrative focus and a single player only, so it's less about messing around with your friends and more about being immersed in the story, looking like a neat little title, with there being a demo available as well, so give that a shot. I've had my eye on First Dwarf for a little while now, since it's an action RPG crafting title in which you play as a dwarf in a mech suit, so what's not to love? Taking place after a magical cataclysm which has caused the planet to fracture and floating islands to form in the sky, play as the first dwarf sent to explore and to search these new lands for precious resources. There's a base building and automation element to it, but not quite to the extent of a factory builder, with it having more of a focus on third-person combat as well as some base defense elements. Oh, and you can also play as a dragon to soar in the skies and to scout and explore, looking like another solid entry in the space. There's finally some good news when it comes to Nimoyd Survival Sandbox, since I swear this game has been in development for what seems to be ages now, easily going back to 2020 or 2021 if I remember correctly, being an isometric sandbox crafting title that looks neat. Most interesting is the radical change in visuals from full pixel art to what you see now on screen, having a variety of different alien races as well as humans, mechs and more. I'm not sure how strong the narrative will be, but the developer does seem to be placing an emphasis on the whole automation thing of creating a planet-wide factory, so there's that aspect. And while narrative might not be its strong suit, the very systems-heavy gameplay loop is the appeal, and I can easily see people losing tens of hours to this game. The original Breathedge from 2021 was quite the amazing success story, since yes, even at the time, survival games were hot, but the developer chose to make this single-player title that was contained on board a spaceship as compared to the open-world sprawl of games like Subnautica and Ark Survival Evolved, even being able to inject humor to the game, and it paid off for them, with the sequel allowing you to get down onto planets to explore and now has NPC crew members to manage, being quite a different spin on the idea, and is worth a mention due to the pedigree alone. The free prologue demo of Tinkerlands has been very well received, being another island survival crafting title in which you are shipwrecked on a new mysterious landmass and have to find a way to survive. Of course, this is a pixel art title, which I do have a soft spot for, with the core resource gathering, upgrading, combat and boss fight kind of gameplay loop being very satisfying. There's also town building and NPCs that you can attract to live there, so it hits all the right notes for a game like this. An amazing looking sandbox survival title is ALOFT, one that is set in a world of floating islands, and the interesting part is that this is already getting updates even while in alpha, while not even being purchasable, early access or not. I guess that shows their commitment to making the best game that they can, running frequent playtests and gathering as much feedback from the community as possible, and that is showing in their Steam wishlist number. The floating islands setting is a delight, with it having both first and third person camera options along with the expected resource gathering, building and combat, but it's a very interesting game for sure. Now here's a game that I can get into, since Delverium sure looks like Stardew Valley to me, only more Terraria style survival crafting rather than a straight up farming sim. Yes, that means being able to construct your own home and to attract NPCs, but where woodcutting, farming, mining and crafting still play a central role. You are, of course, upgrading your equipment and weapons so that you can venture out into the world to explore and to gather new and better resources, looking like my kind of game in a manner similar to Core Keeper, and looks like it might just end up having that same kind of success. One of the OGs in the survival crafting space is Crashlands from developer which released in 2016, being a game which nailed the gameplay loop of adventuring to gather resources to upgrade your equipment so that you can venture out further to gather more resources. And after a little bit of a detour with the Mario Maker-like level head, they are back with the sequel with greatly improved visuals. This game has a sense of humor, with the character animations even looking a little Deadpool-like, so for a dose of the funnies, this is one to get. Another game that just blew up on Kickstarter is Tales of Seikyu, a game with more of a farming sim twist, but it is open world, has combat elements, and of course has a very strong anime influence as well. Our protagonist is able to shapeshift and transform into a variety of creatures such as a wild boar, bird, and even a slime, using these different forms to explore the world or even to help in the farming. I'm guessing that the anime vibes certainly helps with its popularity since it does look pretty good, and interestingly, combat is its own thing, which is a highlight as well, since you will eventually fight giant monsters. Another game that easily blew up in popularity after it was first announced is Outbound, an open-world van life simulation title in which you are attempting to survive and thrive while living off the grid. I suppose van life YouTube channels is one of the reasons of the popularity of this game, since those channels really blew up during the pandemic, which, like Stardew Valley, romanticized the idea of leaving the big city and a corporate job in an office for the simple life and living off the land. This definitely leans more in the cozy direction, so I don't think you're gonna die from starvation in this game, for example, but I'm curious what the goal of the game is, since it looks like you're just driving around and wandering the landscape. But hey, I saw a recent tweet that this has over 300,000 Steam wishlists, which is a very impressive number. I am absolutely amazed at the look of Under a Rock, since this looks like a Pixar movie or something, being another procedurally generated open world survival crafting game, but with also gorgeous visuals, and I'll be back in a little bit to let you enjoy the animation. You crash land on a primitive island untouched by mankind, in which prehistoric beasts like saber-toothed tigers, dodos, Neanderthals, and maybe dinosaurs still exist. While obviously not as impressive as the cinematics, the in-game part of the game still looks gorgeous, having an extensive base building system as well, and looks like an absolute delight, and is easily one of my most anticipated games. Alright, so there have been some newer videos of this game out there, but they all have developer commentary, which I don't really want to talk over, but Farah, the Sundered Tribes is a survival crafting RPG with monster hunting elements. Think Monster Hunter meets Pal World and you get the idea, with the tribal theme looking sick and the world gorgeous. Also coming to us from developer Massive Damage, makers of Halcyon 6 and Star Renegades, which I love, so this is an easy number 1 pick. Watch this video for more action RPGs.